I have no goddamn idea. Absolutely no idea what the fuck or how to do this. I'm just so incredibly goddamn. Try this. Well, I have no idea where we are. Toggle timestamps. Like, none of this makes any sense. I don't even know what any of this means. Jesus Lord Christ, I'm sick of this. I do not understand it. I'm not doing Google Hangouts. We're not doing it. God, I'm going to just absolutely kill myself. I hate this. I just don't understand. Just do not understand this at all. How is that this is working and oh my God. Well, okay. Can anybody hear me? Are we even close? Well, if anybody can hear any of this, leave a note either under this video or in the comments on Patreon. It just absolutely boggles my mind how confusing this is. It just seems unbelievably obtuse, really. I cannot see anybody's comments either from the control room or from the YouTube page. So, if anybody would be so kind as to leave a comment any one of those places. Hey, John is here. Good. Well, John, that is excellent. Mopar Ed. Hey, buddy. That was easy, hey? Cheers. Well, did you guys get here from the link on the Patreon page? And if you did, then I guess we're good to go. I'm again sorry that this stuff is so baffling for me. Yeah, right on, Ed, buddy. That is excellent, John. Thank you guys so much. And again, my apologies for the amount of hand holding this has taken to get me to do to get this operational. It's never been my intent to make this difficult for anybody. So anyway, we're here because the Google Hangouts thing, which seems to be the default when you go through the Patreon, doesn't let everybody in, or rather, anyway, 10 people in and it caves, and that's not really fair. So John says the Patreon link brought us here. That is awesome. Ed agrees. That is terrific. So if there's 4 people watching and 2 of them are talking, that's going to just be fine. So if the Patreon link is working, let me just double check that we don't have any problems. Oh, sorry, guys. 1 second. Be right there. Oh, Tom is in. Yeah. Let's see. Load more comments. So it looks like yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Sorry, guys. If you can see me and hear me, and the link to this. Well, I guess you'd already be here. If you're here, then you already have the link, I guess. It says we're close to 10 million views on YouTube. Well, that's pretty weird. I guess there's lots of guys who get 10 million views on each video. So I don't really know if that's the scale of things on this is so strange. Like if somebody had said that your YouTube channel will have 30,000 subscribers, I would have thought, wow, that is pretty amazing. And then you see that the guy that fixes weed whackers has, 3 million, or the kid that fell down the stairs and or whatever has 5 million subscribers. So anyway, the numbers are so abstract at this point that it is strange and difficult to put a perspective on it. I mean, 30,000 people is a gigantic amount of people, and yet the YouTube channel is just this minuscule little thing. So, I mean, that's that's pretty good, I guess. 10 million views. I don't even know. I mean, like I say, some people get that on each video. Sorry, guys. I got some paint in my eyes. I was just painting like 10 minutes ago. So bear with me here. And Frankers and I were as mini Frankers. Let me see. Oops. She's over there. Hey, Frankers. I'll get her up here to say hi. Can we see? There, again, for anybody who didn't know, there she is. There is about a 10-second lag from me to what you're seeing. So sometimes it'll be like if I have to hold up a picture or whatever, I have to hold it up for 10 seconds just so I can see if I've got it in frame. So anyway, that's just a small change. I'm just happy that we're this far along. So Nelson is in. Get $1 per view. Yeah, that's right. I think I get $1 for 10,000 views. I think. Yeah. No, maybe it's not 10,000. I don't know. It's not very much. Maybe it's $1 for, I can't remember. Is it 500 views? I don't know. It doesn't pay very much. That's for sure. The only reason this is still on the air is you guys. And I think it's important to reiterate that is I had reached the end of what I was able to put into this in terms of time for the return on it. And so if we are still on the air at all, it's because you guys are keeping this on the air. Frankers is very upset. What are you upset about, Mini Frankers? If you guys want, I can get Frankers up to say hi. Oh, come here then. Oh. Hello. Oh, little Frankers. Oh. If you have any questions for Frankers, just let me know. Frankers, who's that? What's this? Who's there? What a nice girl. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so it's enough. I don't know what Frankers wants. Maybe she's just bored. Are you just bored, Frankers? Would you like a cracker? Mostly Frankers just likes crackers, I guess. Did you eat all your dinner today, Frankers? You shouldn't have so many crackers. All right. Are you going to sit here and be good and we'll answer people's questions about why Frankers is so funny? What? Who's your favorite character, Frankers? Oh, it's Dean for sure. Dean lets me jump on him. That's right. Okay, you can go. All right, just quit wrecking everything. Holy cow. Don't, careful. You'll rip up all the cables and wires. There you go. Frankers wants nothing to do with me today. Frankers is upset. There we are. Frankers' favorite heap? Well, I think she likes the truck, but that's because that's the one that she gets to sit in. She's Ed asked what breed of poodle is Frankers? She's a standard poodle. She's a small standard poodle. She's probably 10 pounds lighter than Stella was. Stella was 47 pounds. Frankers is more like 38. And does Frankers help me with the color? Well, between the two of us, we're still colorblind. So I guess she doesn't hurt, you know. If Franker were to pick the colors, that would be probably just fine with me. And yes, Franker's planning her own t-shirts. Franker's might be on the next t-shirt. We're designing in the process of getting the My Classic Tire t-shirts ready, and they will feature Frankers. I don't have a picture handy, but I will definitely let everybody here know first. We're just wanted to finish selling the stuff finished selling the shirts that we had printed. The thing with selling t-shirts this way is that you have to pre-order, like I have to buy X number of shirts. So without really knowing how many you're going to sell, you kind of have to just buy them and go until they're gone. And then each time we sell out, I'll try to make the next design kind of ready. It's just a slow thing. Yeah. So the idea is that the next shirt has Frankers on it, and it has Cold War Motors in big letters, and it has it says My Classic Tire on the tire, and it's got a tire that's a double pinstripe snow grip, which of course is mandatory. And it says My Classic Tire, and it has Cold War Motors in the center of the wheel, and it has Frankers on the other side. And so we're getting that ready, and that I hope will be something fun that we could have a few, that we can maybe sell a few. And then after that, we also have the Turn Up the Bass shirt getting close to being ready. And so that will be fun. The thing with the t-shirts and such is that it is it is a very large amount of work and planning and organization for essentially very small return on it. And I am letting my friend run that website, which is fine. It's just that it halves again any return on the shirts. The first time I did it, and no regrets. The first run of shirts we did a little differently, where I mailed them all from my house here. And I got them printed, and I drove down, and I picked them up, and I had all the pre-orders taken, and then I printed them, and then I mailed them. And that worked out really well. And I think we did a good job. I really think that of almost 800 shirts, I had 2 come back with the wrong addresses provided by the customer, and I reimbursed their money. And as far as I know, anybody can correct me if they're wrong, as far as I know, everybody got their shirt, and I was very happy about that. But I was also extremely stressed about that. And for 2 months, all I did was worry about this t-shirt project. And it was a gigantic amount of work. And I didn't get any work done on my cars. I didn't get any work done on the yard or the videos. I really did nothing but t-shirts for those 2 months. And so I said that I just couldn't do it again. I mean, as much as I like the idea of having t-shirts as a promotional item, they're going to be more of that now. I mean, most of the money that will come in from t-shirts is going to just cover what it's costing to make them, warehouse them, and ship them. I don't expect a bunch of income from the shirts, but I do like the idea of them being out there in the world where people see them. And I think that's really fun when I hear stories from people that they were wearing their Cold War Motor shirt in an airport, and somebody came up to them and, and recognized the shirt. And I think that is, that's the satisfaction I get of the t-shirts more than anything. It is, that's just kind of a fun thing for everybody. And so the actual business end of making the shirts is a lot less interesting and fun than the actual idea of just having shirts with Frankers on them out there in the world, which I think is really funny. We're also talking about making a Dean shirt, which I think would be awesome. I have a great photograph of Dean. I guess I don't have it handy, but I think an Agent 303 shirt would be hilarious, and I would definitely donate my share of the proceeds from that to helping Dean buy himself a decent car. So I think that would be really fun. We have some fun ideas that we're going to do with Dean. You guys may not know, and we don't want the whole world to know, but Dean is actually a pretty fair actor, and does live theater, and is even contemplating directing a play himself. And I think that's terrific. So I think it'd be really fun that we're gonna try to allow Dean a few venues for actually some acting. And I mean, I think it might not fool anybody in this chat, but I think if we were to just put it out there, I love the idea of Dean just pulling that out of his back pocket, and people not really, it might be very confusing to people who think that Dean is a rather one-dimensional character. So, yes. So sorry, Tom, about the long-winded answer. Yes, the line of T-shirts with Frankers will be the next line of shirts, and the classic tire shirt with Frankers on it is something I've had in mind for a while, and it will be within the next 30 days. And yeah, we have a store set up through. I don't know what the name of it is. I washed my hands of the whole thing, in the sense that I don't have the time or energy to micromanage every aspect of it. And apparently it is a functioning thing. I'm not getting a lot of hate mail with regard to it. It seems like everything that we are selling is arriving in good condition on time. I'm really proud of the coffee mugs. They're my favorite thing that we've ever sold. I think the same old shit coffee mugs. I mean, if I worked in an office, that's the coffee mug I would want on my desk. And so I'm very, very proud of those, and I think they're very funny. The dealership decals, I think, are a terrific way that people can, help out who maybe can't afford to be on Patreon, and I think that they're a great thing. The hats, I don't know if we'll do the hats again, just because the mugs and the other stuff sells better. So maybe we'll do 2 shirts instead of a shirt and a hat. I don't know. These are things that are, again, pretty remote from my day to day, which honestly is really more about, like, like somebody's still got to weld all these cars together at the end of the day. And literally at the end of the day, at 3 a.m, I'm out there pounding and welding. And that's still my favorite thing. I really, everything else here that we do is awesome. And if we can use it to the original plan, which was to help build the cars at any level, is to if the videos can Jesse, play a young Gene Hackman. Did you hear that in the video we did, or do you just also think that? That's so funny, because Dave said that one day when Dean was over. Dave said Dean was like a young Gene Hackman, and it's quite funny because that is actually quite funny, because he does kind of look that way. So yeah, so thank you, Ed. I'm glad to hear that you have a t-shirt, and so that's awesome. And John, hey, terrific, buddy. When you're wrenching, that's right. I think Dean's is pretty much rags now. So, and what does it say? Steph. I'm not sure I have. Sorry, Nelson. Steph is. I think it's Steven. Anyway, Dean will want royalties for the Dean shirt. Yeah, absolutely. And he will get them. Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, he has a flair. Yeah, Dean is quite hilarious. And Jalopy Jim, he's back. Good stuff, buddy. Thong panties, probably less likely. Since I think there are exactly 2 women that watch this channel out of 30,000. So I think putting together a large merchandising enterprise based on selling anything to women would be difficult. We might have better luck selling franker accessories to dogs. And Peter, thank you for joining us. Peter says he used his toque this winter. Thank you. I actually was happy with the toques. Yeah, they actually were warm, and I did use mine a lot. I think it's in the wash right now, and they were very, very nicely done, and I was very happy. So, and what does this say? Dean might model the panties. Yeah, don't put it past him. Dean is somebody who is not afraid of much. For Dean, we give him a hard time, but I like hanging out with Dean a lot. He's very easy to hang out with, and we do. I think maybe some people think that's a put on, that Dean is somehow playing that up, but that's actually what he's like, like I've never met anybody who can just stare at an old car for like an hour. He's completely happy to just stand there. Has there been a car Dean doesn't like? No. We're trying to introduce him to the idea that you don't have to love every car, because if you do, then when you say you love something, it doesn't mean anything. And like like if you love every car, then you really don't like anything. So I'm trying to introduce him to the idea that it's okay to not like a 96 Hyundai Sonata. I mean, but he'd be like, oh my God, I love it. I'm like, well, why? I don't know. Yeah. So Dean is he's an enigma, but he's 100% genuine. He's probably the least put on person you'll ever meet. Like he is really without he's not self-conscious at any level, sometimes to his detriment, but he like, for example, the latest video we put up where Dean was quite drunk, and it come across rather foolish. Nobody thought that was funnier than Dean. We watched it last night, and we were both just pissing ourselves at how ridiculously loaded he was. And and he's not embarrassed, and he's not apologetic. He just recognizes it as being absolutely hilarious, which is why I put that in. I think that I always thought that stuff was funny, and I really wanted the show that we're doing to have, I think a lot of the whole automobile thing, the whole automobile culture seems to want to take itself a little too seriously sometimes. And so I thought it was funny if we were going to do something. I'm going to just change this camera a touch so that we're not just looking at my ugly, dirty sweater. What if I just crouch down? Is that better? Whatever. So Dean, he's an enigma, but he is a very optimistic person, and he's very funny. And sometimes, and he's, I don't know. Well, yeah. I mean, what's funny about him is that stuff, like you can film him, and when he doesn't freeze up when you point the camera at him, so many people do, or they get, everything that was funny about them turns off when you point a camera at them, or they suddenly feel like they have to become serious or whatever. So Dean with the camera pointed at him is no different than Dean without it, and that's why often when you see the cinematography is so poor in the videos, it's because I have to pretend the camera isn't on if I'm going to get anything that's funny. So the camera, I just swinging it around, or I leave it on top of a car pointing, and so in order to get people acting naturally, sometimes the cinematography suffers because nobody really says anything particularly brilliant when you just shove a camera in their face. Whereas when you hand the camera to Dean, the first thing he does is turn it around and point it at himself, and that's the difference. And and that's somebody who's an actor and who's comfortable with that, and his mannerisms are very appropriate for television. And he's the opposite of me. So in the sense that he's very animated and very outgoing. So yeah, he's a good person for sure. He has a daughter in BC that he's very dedicated to, and he works very hard. He works all the time. I think people have made the mistake in the past of thinking that he actually works here, or somehow uh, that this is an actual business at some level. But in fact, Cold War Motors is nothing more than the name of a website. It is not. It's not a real thing. It's just my house and my junk and my friends. Nobody works here. It's just me and the dog. And I, up until very recently, have mostly just been doing, kind of little sketchy touch-ups for people who don't want to make an insurance claim, and just by doing a good job and being reasonably cheap, and I've managed to keep the rent paid for the last 20 years, and so, but there is not an actual business called Cold War Motors that you can find in the yellow pages. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. So that's why we can't get Dean here as often as we would like, is that he has a real job and lives on the other side of the city, and is only available when he's not working, which is not very often because he works a lot. So introduce him to a Renault 10. Yeah, he likes the Renault 5. Dean likes everything. He's driven Datsun 200s, and he likes most cars. So I think the thing with Dean is just get him into something that's not junk. His problem is that he likes to get cars for free and then drive them around with the taillights missing, and like Dean will drive. He'll just drive anything. Like he just needs to, like, we just need to get him one decent car, because it's just crazy. Like he'll drive stuff that I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I kind of like beaters too, but he's just a heat score. The stuff he drives, the bumperless LTDs with 2 flat tires, and he doesn't care. He just drives. Oh, I love it so much. I'm like, well, you got pulled over twice on the way here and got 3 flat tires, man. Like, you gotta just pick it up just one little notch, buddy. Just one little notch. We'll all be so happy. Anyway, Dean is good stuff. So. Jim was asking if we still have the CWM car show. Well, I have the last few years. I don't know if I will this year, just because the timing always falls on a long weekend when everybody's off camping. It's a gigantic amount of work because I usually have the bands rehearsed up, and that means that I spend a week cleaning the house because people bring their wives, and it costs a lot of time for it doesn't generate anything other than a lot of work. And since I'm so busy lately, we've decided that we're going to replace the car show with maybe just once a week. We're just going to grab some cars and go over to one friend's house or another and just kick the tires with them, and kind of make it something a little less something that requires a little less commitment on everybody's part. I think it's just very difficult to spend a week or whatever getting everything cleaned up and rehearsing up all the bands for the big party afterwards. And then if it rains, the only people that show up are the people that are in the band. So I get it, and that's okay. But I think for the amount of time it takes, I think I might be better served to spend that time making something that more than half a dozen people can enjoy. Crackers wants to play ball. Just a sec. There you go. Yeah. Oh, and who cut his hair? Yeah. I think some drunken buddy of his ran a clipper up the back of his head. Wasn't me. And yeah, I mean, he looks, anybody else would probably sort that out, you know, like, and Dean just cares. He just cares not at all. He's just white. He's just okay, you know. So yeah, I suggested to him that you know, it wouldn't be terrible to get that tidied up, but yeah, it's part of the thing too. So that's funny. Oh, John said his elderly uncle saw the video of the truck door made of Bondo. That's great. As long as he laughed, I'm very happy to hear that, because the number of comments I got saying that's not the right way to do it were very depressing. Because I thought, I was pretty tired of watching these how to fix rust for cheap kind of videos, and they're all just shit. And I thought, you know, okay, I'll do the worst rust repair of all time. I'll just make if these guys are going to make shitty rust repair videos that get 1 million views, I'll make absolutely the worst rust repair video of all time. And I thought it was so funny, and we were all, you know, very, very happy. We all laughed, and it was a lot of work to edit that and a lot of work to do that repair, in quotation marks. And yeah, for the most part, just completely over most people's heads, or people thought I was actually seriously trying to recommend that as a way to repair a car. So I found the whole thing very depressing, and I'm very sad, because I was very proud of that. I thought it was very funny, and in the end, I was just sad that I pretty much could have done anything other than spend 40 hours putting that video together, and it would have been more successful. So that was a bit depressing. I'm glad to hear from anybody who likes that video, because I thought it was funny, and if anybody else did, thank you, because I mean, a few people got it. I mean, not saying nobody got it. I mean, a lot of you. I mean, if you guys are here, you probably got it, but the number of times I had to read, why didn't you just get a better door? Like, I even put that in the video. Like, we even said that twice in the video, and we even put the better door. I think at the end, Stella is standing right beside the better door that I had, and still people were like, so I don't know. I'll try not to be bitter about that video, but it makes me sad that we planned that and spent a lot of time coming up with the concept and you know, to make the worst auto body repair video of all time. And if there's any satisfaction I get, it's that the repair is still on the car and still works fine. And nobody has ever noticed that door is actually made out of Bondo and chicken. It's just made out of straight Bondo, I think. Yeah. Anyway, that was funny. I'm glad that your uncle saw that video, and I'm glad that he laughed, and that is awesome, because it was a little depressing how few people actually understood that was a joke. Anyway, I guess, you know, that in today's world is probably a pretty depressingly regular occurrence in the land of not getting it at all. So anyway, Jesse said the rebuild of Fury is nothing short of fantastic. Well, thank you, sir. I'm having a lot of fun putting that together. I will be back out there as soon as we're done here. I've got some paint flashing off, and then it's right back at it. Is a gigantic amount of work, but the worst is behind me now, and the rest of it, I just want to get the welding done, because I know when the welding is finished, the rest of the car will be I'll just fly through it, because it's pretty straight, and I've got got good bumpers. I got good trim. Honestly, the heavy holdups on that car are I got to finish the driver's side quarter, which is 3 big repairs. I'll weld all the repairs together before I install them. So I'm just fitting up the repairs to the car. Then I'm going to tack them all together. Then I'm going to take them off, weld all the 3 panels that I made together, and then we'll put them on the car as a single piece so that I'm not fighting with the seams between the 3 panels. Frankers, what do you want? Sorry, guys, hang on. Frankers is barking at me. What would you like, miniature Frankers? Did you eat your dinner? Do you have to go outside? Well, which is it? Come here then. What do you want? I'm just going to check if she ate her dinner. Sorry, this is pretty unrehearsed. What? What do you want? What do you want? Where did you eat your dinner? Where you want dinner? Holy cow, what are you doing? Are you still a hungry Frankers? Would you like some treats? Perhaps Frankers would like some treats. What's that? There we go. Sorry, guys. Wow. They don't probably do that on the news. Okay. Frankers, you going to eat your dinner? There, I got you some. Look, there's treats. Look at the Frankers. There we go. Wow. Anyway, yeah, loving the Fury job. At the end of it, you know, like this is all really fun, but I'm just so happy when I'm out there welding my cars together. I just love making cars out of junk. It's really my favorite thing. So John says Coldwell Motors is more real than many other endeavors. Well, and that's very kind of you to say. It is fun. It's been fun, and we're creating an alternate reality here. I find actual reality, or rather the prescribed reality outside of my yard, to be rather tedious and not really something I need to spend a lot of time with. And so I've just created my own reality here with my friends, and it's I'm not saying it's better, but it's certainly something that I can put up with a little easier. The world just seems to be getting so completely off of its ass that I really have to limit the amount of time I spend out there. So there's Jesse, what's with the upstairs party room? Is it just for the hell of it, or is it a legit venue? Oh, it's for the hell of it. Yeah. I mean, we do have some pretty big parties up there, but it's just it's not a public venue. Certainly, the liability of allowing the general public into your yard at any level is prohibitive these days, and so we do have. I have my birthday party, and we have. We have a few parties every year up there, and sometimes a close friend will want to have a birthday party or a gig there, and it's all set up for bands, playing in 3 different bands right now. So that's it's been put together as a place for us to hang out and jam, and it's really fun. It's what I would have loved to have had when we were kids, when we were trying to actually be musicians. We mostly had to play in half of a garage, all of our guitars hitting each other because there was no room to stand, because there was 2 cars in there, and it was just the only heated 10 square feet that we could come up with, and we were very happy to have it. And so all these years later, we put that together as just somewhere to do, just like with the cars, do the things you want to do as a kid. I never stopped wanting to play guitar with my friends. It just usually becomes impossible. So now the thing with all that stuff is if there's a place there and it's all set up, it's very easy. Lots of people stop in and we can just walk up there and we can just, sit down at the drums or guitar and play and do whatever you want. But it all has to be there. Nobody has the time. Like when it's a case of, okay, everybody bring your drums and your guitar over and set them. Well, it's never going to happen. But if a guy can just stop in on his way home from work with his coveralls on and pick up the guitar and plug it in, then it does work. And that's what that was about. It was just, it was all there and it was all ready to go. And you literally just had to turn on the instruments and start playing. Then it would get used, and it does. And we hosted my friend Matt's 30th birthday party there a few weeks ago, and all of his family is very musical, so we just turned it all on and let them all have at her. It was just terrific. It was great to see it getting used, and you could put between 50 and 100 people up there, and it looks, and it feels like it really happened, and it's a really fun little room. Actually, the curved walls and the sound is good up there. It was a combination of good luck and a certain amount of engineering, not a ton, but a certain amount of thought went into it, and a certain amount of small change. And it's just a super fun place. We use it all the time, and very, very lucky that I know people who can help me have fun with that. So, yeah. Anyway, it's a legit thing, but it's not a public thing. Yeah. Sean, you loved it when Tom said to throw the whole can in the door. Yeah. Oh, that's the best. That's some classic Tom stuff there. Tom, Tom got a kick out of it when we started smashing the door in too, because I don't think he really knew what I was trying to do. And Tom's an old body man from way back in the day, so that's one of the reasons he's often here, is that he really loves, and I think to a certain extent maybe misses the camaraderie of the body shop, where you're talking about some often some pretty rough customers all thrown together in the same building trying to make a living despite whatever weaknesses they have, and it's got a certain vibe. And it's something that I was always attracted to. I always found a certain amount of comfort in the body shop setting, and there's certain rituals and that you're not going to get outside of the body shop environment, and and a lot of Tom's best stories are not funny to somebody who hasn't spent their career fixing cars. So Tom really likes to have a venue for and somewhere, and of course all the cars that we work on here are stuff that he worked on when they were used cars and stuff. So it's great to have Tom around, and he's got great stories about the $70 paint jobs, and tying the car to the train track and making sure there was no trains coming, so you could yank the frame back over square with the tractor, and that's all is real. That's all how it happened. And a lot of these stories have nowhere to go unless Tom and somebody like that can tell them. And it would be, it would be a shame for some of that stuff to be lost. So I'm happy to be an audience for Tom and his stories sometimes. And, it was different times then. I mean, I think people have a different understanding of what a body shop is today. It's a pretty sanitized experience. He tells stories about I won't name names of body shops here in Edmonton where you could get your car painted downstairs and they had hookers upstairs, and that kind of stuff. You're not going to hear about that really. All that stuff kind of stayed inside that arena. So it's a terrific, it's great to have the elder statesman of the sketchy body shop stop by and kick the tires with us. So the thing with Tom, we don't get much of Tom because you never point the camera. I tell people, don't point the camera at Tom because he'll never come back. So he doesn't really know or care about the YouTube channel. I don't ever mention, hey, Tom, we're making a video for YouTube. Like, he sees the camera out and stuff, but you see he'll step out of the way of it. And that's fine. And I never would pressure him to stand in front of it. And he never would. He's extremely shy. So, and he's more than happy to, if the camera's not pointed at him, you get some pretty good one-liners out of him because he's pretty funny. I mean, Tom busting our balls is probably one of the things I look forward to more than anything about going out there and working in the afternoons. That Tom's going to stop by and he's going to bust my balls about something. So, yeah, anyway, Tom, a valuable part of my life here. And, one of the things I think about sometimes is with the characters that stop by here is it's almost like you made it up. In a sense, you did, but I didn't really make that up. I just made up a place, just made up a venue for the place for the whole thing to happen. And that's kind of what this is a kind of a venue for the misfits and oddballs to have valid opinions. What are you doing there, little puppy? Oh, you got toys. What a good girl. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So sometimes it feels like part Cheers, part One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, part Used Cars. Somebody mentioned the movie Used Cars the other day. They made me laugh. Yeah, that shit. All that sketchy shit makes me laugh. I just, crappy repair work and, body shop stuff it's a pretty inside thing. It's pretty funny, and I have a lot of that shit cracks me up. And there's I guess it's a pretty inside thing, and it's one of the reasons that this channel is never really going to go much beyond what we're doing here tonight, because it's not part of the appeal of it for me is that it is not accessible to everybody, and that it is a little bit, it's a little coarse, right? It's a little I guess it's not quite as it could be a lot more accessible and friendly than it is, but then I don't think I would enjoy it. And that was the original idea. So Milo's back. Hey, buddy. The Bono door is hilarious. Thank you. Anyone who takes that serious isn't very bright. Well, I'm happy that somebody else noticed that. I bite my tongue because often I have to remember that what's funny to me is maybe not funny to everybody else. So I was a bit depressed that nobody got that, but I guess it's a pretty obtuse kind of thing. And it was pretty deadpan. I tried to put it together pretty deadpan. So chair. Look at the chair Scott sits in. What are you talking about? This leather one? That one? Or the one behind me? Yeah, they're both pretty old girls. Yeah. This chair is actually a really, really nice, high quality office chair that my friend from Montreal actually mailed to me at some considerable expense. And the one behind me, that's Franker's chair. And it's, yeah, I have the matching couch to that one, and they were just absolutely mint when I got them. The house used to actually look really nice. Those were absolutely perfect kind of retro kitsch kind of set. But, 15 years of puppy dogs have taken care of most of the furniture and all the nice rugs I had, and all that stuff is gone. It's pretty much just a place where I cook coffee now. So, John, hey John, very good of you to join us, buddy. I hope we're having no trouble getting through here now. I'm beginning to get a little better at how to do this. I only effed it up 3 times this time, I guess. I'm still not sure why it all defaults to Google something or other, Google Hangouts. It seems to want to default to that, so I have to kind of butcher my way around it to get it to just do this, which I'm quite content with. And I'm really happy to see 15 people seem to have found the link from the Patreon page. So yeah, I wanted to say welcome to everybody who's not got any questions and just wants to hear Dean stories. That's also totally fine. So John says the yard is an oasis. Well, thank you. It's really a treat to hear from somebody who understands why I built that, and it is an oasis for me. First and foremost, is that's where I feel absolutely comfortable standing in the middle of that and with my friends, and just kind of it's quiet, and and there's no there's no interference from the control system. I get to pretty much, all I really want out of life is just like to be left alone with my cars and my friends, and so I'm doing everything I can to make that happen. And then I'm happy to hear. I think that there are some people who understand that, and some of them are here right now, and that's awesome. So it is something that has taken a long time. I've lived here for 20 years, and it's just starting to come together to what I had in mind, which was my own abandoned used car lot. And just, it's been so much fun. I don't know if any of you guys were here this afternoon. I picked up another car with Dean yesterday, and that's going to be, it might be the next video. I don't know. The videos, I don't even decide what it's going to be until I sit down and then I look through the footage, and then I think, what have we got that would make an interesting video? And so the next video, we don't usually do a straight start to finish narrative style video, but maybe the next one will be, because it was very rarely do we all get together and say, today we're going to go get a car and I'm going to bring the camera and we're going to just record the entire process and have some laughs. And we did one like that last weekend. And it was because Dean was pestering me to save this car. And I said, well, okay, but you got to come with me, because it was 200 kilometers away and whatever. I said, but if you'll come with me, then then let's do it. And we did it. And the car is really fun. And I'll put some pictures up. I tried to show people a picture on my phone and on the earlier live stream today, and the phone pictures are just they don't look very good. But anyway, Jesse, I think that's right? SMX. I believe you mentioned last time your name was Jesse. If I'm wrong, correct me. If I'm not wrong, don't worry about it. Is there a plan to fix up the Plaza, the orange car, or the Mayfair? Well, kind of. The Plaza, yeah. The Mayfair also kind of. The orange car, I think you're thinking of the Dodge Viscount, 1959 Dodge Viscount. No plan to fix that. The Viscount was just such an interesting and rare car, but it's pretty, it's a yard ornament. It's nice, it's safe where it is, and it's a really it's a cool car, but that's as far as I'm going to take it, just because it would be a gigantic amount of work to restore a four-door sedan that has a certain amount of interest for a very tiny number of people, when I have a pretty ambitious list of cars, among them the Plaza and the Mayfair. The Plaza, kind of a top secret plan. So yeah, I will definitely keep everybody posted. But first, we have to finish the 60. Then I might. My goal is a 57, 8, 9, 60, 61, all two-door hardtops. So that anything outside of that is going to have a hard time. So just because that's a pretty gigantic amount of body work for one person to do. everything I have is missing the bottom 6 inches, and that's they all are. I mean, if you want to build those cars, you have to know how to weld. So whatever I do, and that's what the show is about. Is regular guys with no money can have fun cars if you're prepared to put the time in. So lots of plans to fix lots of cars, and those are all important cars on the list. Not so much the Viscount. It's just a car that I needed to save because it is so rare. I think there's probably less than 10 of those left. Art, good to hear from Art. How's it going, buddy? If Dean plays a young Gene Hackman, you can reenact the car chase and the French Connection with the Kaiser. Yes, I would love to do any amount of highly energetic driving in the Fraser. That would be hilarious. I'm going to continue to invest in film equipment, and maybe someday we can find ourselves. I have lots of really hilarious car chase movie ideas that I'd like to make. The thing is that as soon as you're actually really chucking the cars around, you need to have somebody's permission, because otherwise it all ends with everybody in jail. So I guess the thing is that this channel has to be able to generate enough interest and funding that I can ask my friends to take a week off. And I mean, we've got great car chase ideas and we've got great cars. I don't know how many of you guys know that I've got some friends who collect police cars. So I can lay my hands on just about anything for the car chase movies I want to make. I mean, we've got I got friends that have cop cars and friends that have Ferraris and friends that have everything in between, and we can make. I mean, we got bottomless ideas for hilarious little car chase movies, but they all require a pretty serious time commitment. And I mean, the last 75 seconds of the last video I made with the motorcycle and the drone shots and the music took almost, it took a full 2 days to put together that 70 seconds of video. 2 days of hard work. And so if you want to make a 10-minute short movie with car chases, you're looking at something that could take weeks of get up in the morning and work on it stuff. So there's nothing I'd rather do than make awesome car chase movies. Like, I mean, that's been a dream, right? And we're halfway there. Like, to be even standing here realistically discussing it means that it's not impossible, but there's a lot of work ahead if we're going to actually carry on with that. So Jesse says by huffing harder and nitro. Yeah, there is definitely some residual chemistry floating around in my bloodstream as well. I'm a lot more careful than I ever was as a kid. I think, I actually wear gloves now, and I used to have my hands would just be painted, but I'm a little more careful now, just because I've never met a car painter over about 70, just because they're dead. So another reason to try and do something besides just paint cars. Like, I think that I have some things that I'd like to do. And if I just have to paint dented minivans for my entire career, all the fun stuff that I wanted to do will just not get done because I had to pay the power bill. So I love bodywork and I love doing it, but I love doing it because I like having the cars. And that's the thing. So if you're just doing dented minivans, it's just a job. Sorry, I keep looking away. It's just Frankers is making noise or trying to. What are you eating there? What do you got there? Is that even for Frankers? What is that? Where did that come from? Frankers is just chewing on a rock. Anyway, so Peter Hampton, thank you for joining us, boss. Right on. Peter said what he likes is the camaraderie. Yes. Well, I am very happy to hear that people kind of appreciate that about the channel. It's supposed to be about, it's supposed to be about hanging around with your friends, not so much about hey, look how cool I am and look how cool my car is. It's supposed to be about, look what you can do with your friends if you all like cars, and the cars are kind of the centerpiece, and the show is kind of, I don't know. I don't even really know sometimes what the purpose of this is, except that it's just, people who like cars like standing around and making jokes about them, and if it makes me laugh, maybe it makes somebody else laugh. So I'm always happier to hear that people like it, what we're doing, for any reason other than that we weld nice patches together, which I'm also, immensely flattered that anybody would think that. But anyway, the spirit of the thing is, and without it getting, it's, there's got to be a certain amount of ball busting. Like, you don't want to make it too much. Like, it's not supposed to be a kids show. It's okay. It's supposed to be a little coarse. So, if people see that and appreciate it, that really means a lot to me. That it means that the show has the vibe that I want it to, and it's never going to be a look how cool I am, look at my cool shit and how fast it is kind of show. I mean, I can't watch that stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's guys who do it very well, and there's lots of great, successful YouTube channels that are doing that, and I'm not even slightly interested in competing with that. That's just not what I find interesting about the hobby, and it's great. I'm happy that other people are doing it. It's just like anything else, and I'm happy that guys are very successful playing video games on their YouTube channels. That's awesome, but it's got nothing to do with what I'm doing, so I don't feel like I'm going to try and compete with it. But shows about hanging out with your friends, awesome. And if anybody likes that, thank you. Mopar Ed, I'd like to have the chair. Oh, you want the chair? Yeah. All right, pop in. Maybe it'll fit in the GTX. This is a lovely chair, and I would like to restore it properly because I've put a bunch of miles on it. And hang on a second. Are you really barking at me? Why? What? What do you want? Sorry, guys. Frankers is just going to be distracted. What is the matter? Do you need to go over a bee? Well, what is it? Okay, I'm going to try 1 second to just let her outside in case it's important. I'll be right back. You have to go outside? Come on. There. Get up. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what's on about Frankers. She just seems to have a kind of a generalized impatience today. Would you sit, please? Sit. You have to sit. Just sit down. Yeah, there you go. Jesus, sorry, guys. Peter. Yeah. Well, thank you, Peter. I think that if people get that from it, then that means that we're doing the job that I wanted putting it together, which is, part of the reason that I started doing it the way that we did was that when the cars are junkers and they have nothing to lose, then there's never any sense of, oh, geez, did you do that well enough for me? Or, oh, don't put your wrench down on the, as soon as it's got to be really nice, it stops being fun pretty fast. And if you want to keep it fun, it's way more fun when the cars are junk and all you're trying to do is get your friends together and make her to the mailbox and back. And that was my original idea with the Will It Run series, was that you take all of the very favorite parts of the whole hobby. What are you doing? Holy cow. Sorry, that was loud as hell, Frankers. Get out of the car. Come on, there's nothing there. Look. There you go. Just a menace today. Yeah, so the idea was that you would take the whole hobby and kind of boil it down to the favorite parts, which is like buying the car, right? Picking it up, loading it on the trailer, bringing it home, pushing it off, washing it up. Everybody stands around with beers and goes, yeah, it's really cool. And then getting it running and hearing it run for the first time and driving it for the first time and maybe putting some sweet rims on it. Those are the good times with the cars. And a lot of the rest of it is just tedious. It's, when you start doing it nice, and then so much of the hobby just becomes just tedium, and tedium doesn't really make for very interesting watching. So I thought that it tied in nicely with my goal of putting together a funny fake used car lot from back in the day. And it also allows you to have some laughs using the sketchy used car lot tricks, which I find really funny, of course. And anybody who spent any amount of time doing bodywork has done their share of sketchy used car lot tricks, which is where the sketchy dust-in theme came from. And that stuff, man, we used to, we would all laugh when we were doing that shit at work. No, check it out, 68 Camaro with holes the size of shoe boxes in the quarters, and you're like, it's got to go. We got to paint it tonight, And I mean, whoever could schlub that together and make it look presentable was, you were a champion. Nobody was disparaging that kind of thing. It was like, oh, you made that actually happen. Like the measure of your worth was how fast, as opposed to how perfectly. And so I kind of miss that, and the venue for that is on your own cars in your own yard that have nothing to lose, that are cars that, I mean, they needed restoration when you bought them. They need restoration when you're done. The difference is that they look nice and they run, and you can have some fun with them. The actual restorations, they take years and cost, between 30 and 100 grand to do a car properly. But if you're just hanging around with your friends, nobody ever comes over to help me with the serious work. And it's also because they know I don't want the help, because the stakes are too high. And when the stakes are low and the cars have nothing to lose, then the fun factor is just goes way up. So that's kind of been that's kind of been the central theme of it. So I'm happy to keep doing it, and we don't do as many of the strict 3-part Will It Run series as we used to. That's all gotten kind of hijacked anyway, and so now I'm more about I realized that some of these Will It Run cars were actually getting a reasonable amount of hours invested in them. And starting with the Fraser, I thought, why not take it to the next level where you do all of the Will It Run stuff, but you keep going until you can put plates on it. And it still looks like a junkyard car, but you've taken it, you've actually taken it to the point where it has passed a safety inspection and is actually a plated car with everything working. And I think, after 20 whatever episodes, I don't think we have to prove that we can get a car running. And I think, and I still do get a tremendous thrill out of hearing some of these cars run, and I do like doing it. But now I think in a situation with a finite amount of time, that it's beneficial to pick cars that you're actually seriously going to put plates on when you're done. Doesn't mean the cars can't be junk. Doesn't mean they can't be weirdo junk that you find. It's just, to me, it's if if you're really going to prove something, put plates on it when you're done. And that's the idea with the Fury project, is that there's a car I think that we can say we took just probably one of the worst cars I've ever bought, and when I'm done, and it won't be very long, it's going to have plates on it, and it's going to be nice. And the budget is still zero. That hasn't changed. Like, I mean, obviously zero is impossible, but if you set your budget at zero, it sure encourages you to keep it low. And people through Patreon here, I know, I don't think Mike is with us right now, but Mike S, who shows up occasionally, has been instrumental in locating and shipping parts that I simply don't have time to find. This stuff is out there, and people have been so kind as to ship it. And I mean, I don't even, like, that stuff can be a hang up. So having anybody do any amount of that legwork has just been a real treat. And that Plymouth is going to be it's going to be on the road. Maybe not this summer, but certainly before the snow flies. I want it for my birthday, and that means that it gets painted like end of this month. We're going to be. I'm going to have to hustle. Like, we're going to have to really, and once the welding's done, it'll really come together reasonably quickly. The amount of sewing is going to be massive, but I think we'll have proved our point really as soon as there's paint on the car, and then that I think a kind of a signature series for the channel. And I think another thing that is important is that I've never done anything specifically with the intent that it would be a YouTube video. The whole idea of the channel was that the videos would just be a case of filming what we were doing anyway. And I would not have done that Fury any differently if I had a YouTube channel or not. That's, I think, something that people might have thought that I did it as a stunt or whatever. And I would have to say that would be if I wanted to just do a stunt, I would just jump a skateboard over something, like, that's a pretty involved way to do a stunt on something so obtuse and really nobody, I mean, there's some pretty hardcore people who are following the build of that car, but I mean, there's certainly no million view videos coming out of this place ever. Everything's pretty it's pretty specific to, like, you have to be really into what we're doing here to want to sit through it. So the project is going ahead exactly the way I would, whether I was filming it or not. And I think, and so is the rest of it. I mean, the idea was to try to capture and share, I think, a lifestyle that some people would find difficult to have because, they have, anything else at all in their lives, right? Like, I know a lot of people might have said to me that, well, you've really got it made out here. And, it's nice of them to say, but I say, well, I mean, would you trade your family and kids and, nice big house and everything for it? No. So, good, nor should you. But it is nice that I can provide some, somewhere for those people to come over when their family obligations are wound up for the day, and we can just hang out and do a little bit of that. Ditto with the stage and the band stuff upstairs. It was just a case of me having the time and opportunity to put it together so I could share it with my friends, and therefore surround myself with the quality of people that I'm very honored to be able to hang around with. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of the whole thing, and filming it has just been a way of sharing it with more people. Yeah. Ed says Google is the Antichrist. Ed is also probably correct about that. Guy has to be careful when he's making his living off of it to some extent, but yeah, if I ran Google, it would be a little different than it is, but whatever. Can't do much about that right now. So John said the Model T is an incredible find. Well, yeah, I was very lucky, John, to get a hold. That was a case of putting the word out to the right people. My friend Matt, who found that car, knew I was looking for one because I told him I was, and he's very much a pre-war Ford expert. He's very ear to the ground with that. He moves in all the circles where those cars change hands. And when that came up, he told the owner of it, you phone, to call him when the guy was prepared to sell it. And he told me about the car, but he said, I said, well, whenever it happens is when it happens. It was just a case of being very lucky, being very patient. And I mean, I've been waiting for, probably 5 years since I've started looking. And the thing is, I think looking is inaccurate. Not since I started looking, but since I decided that when the right one came, I would buy it, and that I would have the money sitting aside for when the right one came along. Ditto with the SM, another car I never thought I'd get. Very, very, very lucky. And honestly, a very nice T came along at the same time as the SM, and they were both the same money. And I bought the SM, and it was the right decision because that was a once in a lifetime. And Model Ts, I don't know about where you are, John. Around here, I wouldn't say that they're common, but there's usually 2 or 3 for sale. Whereas an SM in restorable condition was a once in a lifetime for me. They're extremely rare. I'm assuming they're rare most places, but I got very lucky. But another case of knowing the right fellow and being patient. And it took me several years to finally get that SM. I had been watching it and waiting and watching and knowing that sooner or later the guy who owned that was going to realize he was over his head and that I would be standing there with money when he was. And that's kind of how it went down. And he was not able to pay his storage or his bill from my friend Richard doing some work on it. And maybe he wasn't able to pay it, but he wasn't comfortable with, and he also was able to recognize eventually that he was just starting the first mile of a very, very expensive marathon that he could not afford to run. The only reason I can own a car like that is that I can make all the panels and weld it together and I can paint it. The rest of the car is pretty decent, but you're looking at if somebody else was to drop that car off and say, call me when it's done, the bill would be ferocious. And so just a case of kind of, and I'm trying to get this across to Dean as well, which pick the cars you want and wait for the right ones, and they will come along, and you will find 1,000 ways to amuse yourself in the meantime. And so really the Model T and the SM will bookend the entire collection here, such as it is. The T at one end as the simplest, most reliable and successful vehicle of all time, and also the oldest car I'll probably need to own immediately, and the SM at the other end as the most spaceship car and the most complicated and possibly least successful car that I will ever own, and also a car that is so remote from my experience growing up with a family who bought Plymouth station wagons. Really, like a car like that would have been considered just a ridiculous indulgent waste of money by anybody in the last 5 generations of my family. So I kind of bought it with a certain smile for how remote it was from my experience. And really anyone in my family, it's pretty much a Plymouth sedan family going back generations. And I mean, practical to a fault, and so the idea of having those cars to bookend a very small private collection makes me very happy, and I'm having a real hard time not pushing everything aside so that I can work on the Model T, because it's just sitting there just saying work on me. And I mean, it's so easy, and there's only need 3 wrenches to work on it, and I just know if I start on it, then nothing else will get done. And I'm so heavily committed to the 60 Fury at this point. I mean, I'm not going to stop with 20 videos in. Like, we're not stopping until that thing has plates. Otherwise, everybody who said, "Oh, you'll never do this," would be right, and that's just not allowed to happen. So, sometimes do you want a little snacky, Frankers? There you go. Sometimes you have to do stuff just to finish it. So, Frankers does not want to share. Yeah, I know Frankers. Frankers is very good. Stella didn't want to share me with anybody. You couldn't even stand too close to me with Stella. Frankers is way less jealous and way less neurotic. And Stella will always be, the biggest thing that my life ever had. And I'm not saying that, but Stella was very jealous. She was a very jealous dog, and it was usually quite endearing. But sometimes it was like, come on, just relax. I'm not going. Anyway. Frankers doesn't want to share. Well, Frankers is pretty good. Certainly, having experienced Stella anyway. John says your interaction with Dean in the last video was very fun. He wanted to free the engine up. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I really had fun in that last video with Dean, and it was really, there was some stuff there where Dean wasn't at his best, but as I said earlier, that nobody laughed harder at that than Dean when we saw the finished video. He loved it. He just laughed. How his eyes were barely open there. He was having a laugh. And the funny thing with Dean is he'll say things like, "Oh yeah," like he talks about things like how drunk he was as though there was no rational explanation about what happened, like, "Oh yeah, I don't know why I don't know how," like, "Oh, it must have been so drunk," like he's like he doesn't understand how that happened. That really cracks me up, I'm like, well, didn't I watched you drink 2 liters of Mike's Hard lemonade out of a bottle, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like some random event that you got that drunk, Anyway, that's what cracks me up about Dean is he can watch himself in that video and be like, "Oh, well, I don't know what happened there." Like, really, eh? Okay. So yeah, Dean is terrific. I have to play bad cop with Dean a lot because otherwise we'd all be out there still trying to fix a 76 LTD. Anyhow, there's a lot of good times with Dean, and the last one we had was really fun too. I hope you guys like the going and rescuing this latest car with Dean video. It was really fun. So sorry, I may have missed. Oh, Nelson's at Cardboard Corners. I'm not sure. I'm missing a reference, or I said something earlier. Sorry about that, boss. Unless you're referring to my furniture, some of which might very much be cardboard, I could not tell you. Jesse says the Fraser was an excellent series. Thank you. I was very proud of that, and I think probably if we were to try to pick something that kind of sums up what this channel is about at its best, I would say that that series is it. It pretty much in that 12 videos, at least up until that time, I think that the channel kind of came into having a certain feel and came into being something of a, you know, I think it is a very good and reasonably accurate representation of what this place is about and the people and the attitude. And the fact that the car is just an ugly old four door doesn't really diminish the series to me. I think it's quite fun to see it chugging around at the end there, and it's something that I was very happy with, because of course when I started it, I really had no idea where it was going to go or what, and I also was very aware when I started that series that the title of the first video was my new daily, and at that point I had more or less committed myself that I had to finish the car. So I was very conscious of that throughout that process. Is like, well, you just told all these people that this is your new daily, so you're really not allowed to stop until it is. And somebody asked in the first live stream a few days ago whether, in fact, what my actual daily was, and in fact, that is it. That car gets more miles, really. I was going to say than everything put together, but it's pretty close. In the summer, I would say the Fraser gets the most miles, followed very closely by the Citroen, and the Citroen might get more miles because that's the one I would take on a long trip. But for just daily shit work, driving around, running errands, it's the Fraser. I just love that thing, and never. It's just a real freedom having a classic car that is not shiny. Um, you can lean on it, the dog can jump on it, and the people can bang their doors into it at Safeway or whatever. I just don't care. It's just, it's a real freedom, and the car is just bone reliable. I've never ever had to phone somebody and say bring cables or bring some parts or bring wrenches to the point where I don't throw wrenches in the car when I leave. Some other cars I might, but not this one. It really does. It has fulfilled its mission statement tenfold. Really, like I really had. I had very modest expectations for the car when I put it together, and I really find very few circumstances where the car is not appropriate or not usable. I mean, it's a little bit. It's at the outer edges of its use envelope, you might say, when you're driving it in city traffic downtown. But it's not a menace. It's not stalling and overheating. It's just that it's a little, the transmission synchros are slow, and you got to take your time. And the gearing is very steep, so you really first gear is only good for about 10 feet, and that's just enough for the people behind you to get on the gas, and then you're doing that big long shift from first to second just as people are really coming up on your bumper. So if there's a part of the car that is not as good as it could be, maybe that's it. It's just a little slow on the first to second, and I mean, for the most part, people are pretty okay with the car because it's obviously old, and most people can get it through. Can get it that don't tailgate this car and don't cut it off. And I am a very careful driver. I was very fortunate that I bought a car with no seatbelts when I was a teenager, and it really slowed me down. I think part of the reason the drivers are so bad today is there's no real penalty for driving like an idiot. the worst that happens is a big balloon goes off in your face and somebody buys you another car. I think if you put, if you put big metal spikes in the steering wheels and took the airbags out, you'd probably have a lot less accidents. Of course, maybe that's, maybe that's a little harsh, but I tell you, having a 49 Fraser really makes you a safer driver. I mean, I leave lots of room, and I'm, you're paying attention because you're not just gonna, have a balloon go off in your face and go buy another one. You'll probably be dead. So we have to be very careful of that. I think motorcyclists understand because there's no seatbelts and airbags on those either. And I ride my motorcycle just like I drive a car with no seatbelts, which is my only goal, is to survive long enough to get where I'm going. And I have fun. I mean, you could put seatbelts in the car, but you could put disc brakes and a V8 in it too. Like I want to experience the car and drive it the way it was put together. And I have to admit, I do have a little bit of a smile to myself when I see people get in the car and they look for the seatbelts, and the look on their face when they realize there aren't any. It's kind of funny, especially for younger people, because they have no idea that cars without seatbelts even existed. So it is a real treat to drive the Fraser, and I use it all the time. Just use the shit out of that thing, What was John says? The Fury was obviously the car you wanted. If it takes 4 or 5 to make one, then it just makes the series that much more awesome. Well, thank you, John. Well, I guess we're at, I don't know, like, it's taking a fender off of a car count as a car? I don't know, maybe. In which case, yeah, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. We're at 5 cars just in body panels, I guess, but really only 3 that are welded to make the actual structure. But the other 2 are the fenders. So, yeah, I mean, there's some pieces there for sure. What'll make that awesome to me will be that you don't want to be able to tell that anything was done. It should just look like a beautiful original car. That'll be the measure of success on that job. I was tempted, and we laughed about it last night. I was tempted when it's all done to paint the car and paint each of the pieces back to the color that it was on the car it came off of. So the car would have a red cowl and windshield frame and red rocker panels and a blue and white top with a yellow trunk lid and yellow quarter panel on one side and one beige fender with the, you know what I mean, and paint, but do a beautiful job of it. But I thought that's kind of defeats the purpose of a major splice job like this, where I think the measure of success is that you don't see any of the work. And I think the best body work is the body work that you don't see at all. And I think when that car is done, to anybody who hasn't seen the series of videos, they'll think that they're just looking at a nice granny garage find kind of car. It's not going to be fully restored. That was never the intent. It's going to be, like you could add hundreds of hours just in polishing and detailing the stainless on that car. And you could add thousands of dollars in chroming and all that kind of shit. None of that's going to happen. I just want the car to look like I found a really nice original car and bought it. And it's going to have gravel rash on the stainless, and it's going to have some, the bumpers are scratched up and maybe a couple little dings in them. That's the difference between building the car for $5,000 and building it for 150. The car is just going to have to be, and it's also the difference between a car that I'm going to drive as much as I can and a car that you would never drive. So I'm really, really enjoying that project, and I'm enjoying the process, and I'm really going to enjoy having it finished. And I might even take a tiny amount of satisfaction in reading some of the comments about what the hell are you doing? This is never going to work. That stuff kind of, sometimes you take your motivation where you can get it. So looking forward to, I really want to see it. And, people who know me understand that they're dealing with a very, very stubborn person. So there's a 0% chance that that car isn't going to get done and turn out nice. Oh, it's Bruce. How's it going, Bruce, buddy? I'm assuming you'll be taking the Lotus around the block. Yes. What would the neighbors say? They would say, yeah, they'd say, there goes that guy again. The Lotus is my friend John's. I don't know if we've done much of a series on that yet. We're just working on it. It's a Lotus Formula 3 race car. Formula Ford. My apologies. It's a Formula Ford. Anybody familiar with Formula racing in the 60s would know the Formula Ford was a formula put together to allow people to develop their skills as open wheel race car drivers without having to buy, a Maserati or some fantastically expensive vehicle. So they come up with a more or less a formula which involved mass-produced Ford four-cylinder engines in a lightweight open wheel chassis it was beyond karts, but short of Formula 2, wherein a lot of the cars became Italian and very expensive. So Formula Ford was a real popular kind of series, and some of the cars are still kicking around. And my friend bought one, and it's a Lotus Model 51, and he's restoring it, or he's having the chassis restored and the engine done, and I'm going to paint the glass. The body on them is just a flimsy little canoe that's fitted over top of this tube chassis. So we're giving the car a little tidy and back to the correct colors. We're going to do it with the Lotus Racing Green with the gold nose stripe, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're trying to do it as quickly and reasonably as possible. And a good piece of the bill on the car is going to be the understanding that I get to go drive it on a racetrack. So for a guy like me who's used to driving a Fraser, I think a Formula Ford is going to be a real delight. I have not got any experience with open wheel race cars of any capacity. I've done some kart racing just at chicken shit bachelor party level, and it is highly addictive. My brother and I are a little too competitive to be on the track at the same time, because then the damage deposit goes away pretty quickly. So I think that taking this Lotus around will be a real treat. And so that is the plan. And that car we will be doing a series on very soon if we haven't. I filmed, I think, the start of it. But it's essentially a tidy and paint job. The Lotus bodies are very flimsy and they're wavy and wonky. And my friend who bought the car, he wants it 90% as a showpiece and 10% to go out and race it. So he's more concerned with making sure that it looks really nice than hiring good drivers to run it. So I can both paint it nicely and drive it badly. So I'm going to get a turn in that. And to say that I'm looking forward to that is a bit of an understatement. That's pretty remote from my experience, and something that, like a lot of things, I never thought I'd be able to do. And there's a lot of things that I thought I'd never be able to do that they're not going to happen, and that's okay. And a very tiny number of them may actually happen, and I'm not going to miss out. So, and Bruce mentioned, so Dean doesn't get all the attention. Yeah, which he does. I have to say, when we do these things, I probably spend 70% of the time answering questions about Dean, but it's because he is such a compelling character, and I totally get that. And I think also because Dean is not here often to answer questions about himself. He was here the other day, and it was really fun. And Dean had a great time, and he'll do it again with us. So anybody interested in hanging out with Dean, we will definitely get another chance, because he had so much fun, and I bought the beer, so he'll be back. Dean is great stuff. You can hang around with him anytime. And Bruce says all the other agents are great guys, and that is absolutely right. I don't take it lightly that people of that quality would generate or donate any amount of their time to helping me with anything, and Bruce included. There's a there's a there's a you know it's a small group of people with some intangible element to them that makes me want to have them back, and so there there's a lot of quality, and for different reasons too. Certainly, not everybody is Dean, but 20 Deans in a room doesn't make for success, and 20 of me in a room doesn't either. There has to be a certain amount of chemistry, like any great thing, like any show or any band or any kind of uh, anything that involves enough people. It's sometimes the combination of the people is more important than the qualities of any single one of them. And I think uh, certainly guys, when you have guys like Tom and Dean and Justin and and my brother and Bruce and Kevin and all these guys, some of whom I don't get to see anymore. Alex has been very kind to deliberately stop by when he's in town so that we could shoot some footage. I was just speaking to Dylan today, Agent 533, who lives in BC now. He's only in town a few times a year, but he makes a definite point of stopping by, and I definitely make a point of because he, before he moved, was so instrumental in keeping this going and keeping me motivated at it, and we very much miss him as somebody among all of the agents who I could literally just hand him, I could just, he could do anything I could do mechanically, and I would never have to double check anything he did or whatever, right? And a hell of a body man too. So very much, or I have to sneeze. Pardon me. Again, the quality of all of the guys that hang around here. Ashley with so many cars that he has just, and he's here. He may push his way to the front of the line with some of his cars, but he's also here at 3 a.m. Like, he doesn't fool around. Like, he doesn't just drop shit off and say, "Call me when it's done." Like, if he's serious, then he's here 24 hours till it's done. So that's awesome. Bodywork cheats at Honest John. Yes, that's what he was referring to. For sure. Cardboard corners, Bondo, wax paper, chicken wire, all the classics, you bet. I love that stuff. I was actually thinking it's too bad that Alex is not around as much anymore, because Alex and I used to, just for laughs, we would have like shitty bodywork contests where we would fill holes with tape and, just like see who could do the worst job but make it look nice, and so we would always have laughs with that. I would like to do more of that, because we could practice on the cars that are in my yard here, because you would never take somebody's money for work like that. But honestly, a lot of those cars look a lot better with a little bit of putty in the holes versus just leaving them with holes in them. And since they are not intended as restorations, but more as set pieces, it's kind of a fun way to get some exercise in the sketchy dust-in kind of way, as well as actually, I think something that people don't understand is a lot of times just putting a little Bondo over top of a hole is a lot less destructive to a car than a badly welded repair job, which does way more damage to the car in the long run than if you had just kind of either left it alone, or better yet, put a little mud over it so that the water stays out of it. Bad body work does more damage to cars than just leaving them alone every time. So John asks, will the SM and Fury be dailies? Yes. Neither one of them is getting detailed to the point where I would be afraid to get them wet. I have my 67 is all painted underneath and detailed to the point where if it gets wet, you have to spend a day with paper towels and Windex cleaning the bottom of the, and it means that it never gets driven. And I'm going to do one more really, really nice car for myself. And right now, it'll be a 58, probably be the 58 Plymouth. That's kind of where I'm leaning. Um, the SM is going to be very, very nice, but not trailer car nice. I mean, it's going to be nice. Will it be a daily? I don't know. I don't think they can all be dailies because that would mean that you have to drive 10 different cars every day. But the SM will be driven and it will be enjoyed, but it's not going to be sitting in the Safeway parking lot getting banged into just because I have cars that are for that. The SM will be getting driven. I drive my stuff very gently. I'm not really worried about breaking it. I just, uh, you know, when you have cars that you don't care if they get dented, but you still like them, then those are the cars to leave in the parking lot. The SM, that said, I have driven it enough to know that it's going to be very hard not to drive it every day because it is, without exaggeration, the most amazing car I've ever driven. Like it, before I got to the end of my driveway, I was just so in love with the car. I just couldn't believe how amazing they are to drive and how like the whole atmosphere of the car and everything is just like, you just feel like a superstar in a car like that. And so, I mean, the sound it makes and the shifter and the steering, I mean, the whole experience of the car is just so incredibly awesome, uh, that it will be very difficult. Every other car is going to feel rather mundane after having the SM for any amount of time. But there's also a very realistic point of view that says SMs that you don't use very much are SMs that are broken less often. So that's a very realistic point of view, and I understand that completely. And I am somebody that when my cars are finished, I don't like to go back and work on them again. Once it's done, that's why I did the Fraser the way I did. I mean, I have not opened the hood on that car since I finished it. Really, like to do belts or tune-up shit. Like it's done and it's bone reliable. I love it for that. So the SM, if I can get it dialed in, there's a certain amount of caution will be exercised, along with a whole lot of trying to stop myself from just driving it 24 hours a day because it's just like having your own helicopter. Like you just want to go rip around in it. So yeah, great question and thank you. The Fury more so, definitely to the point, like I made earlier, that the car is not getting restored to the point where I will feel like I'm abusing it when I drive it. Like it's going to get driven in the rain. It's going to get driven on gravel roads. It's going to get driven with 6 people and a dog in it. It's going to be driven to go to the junkyard and throw tools in the back. But it's not going to get abused. And dailies implies, at least for me, summer. I have no interest in rotting out all of the hard work I did by driving it around in a salt bath. So daily means summer, but daily also means like when it starts raining on it, you don't run home. You just turn the wipers on and just keep about your business, and all of that will be fine. The Fraser doesn't leak water. The Citroen DS wagon that gets driven and just down gravel roads in the pouring rain, and it comes home filthy, and it gets rinsed off and put back in the garage. It's just fine. So I think that somewhere in there is just the right combination of presentable and neglectable. That's kind of where I like my cars. Just presentable enough that they'll shine up if you want to go to a kind of a show and shine, show us your junkers kind of show, but not so precious that you're afraid to if you see a cloud, you run home and put it in the garage. And I'm not disparaging the people who do that, because really, really perfectly clean cars are a gigantic achievement and commitment. And really perfectly clean cars, I get it. If I had one, well, I do, and I'm a little more careful with it. I'm getting less careful now as I finished the car 12 years ago, and I have other cars now, and so I'm a little less fussy about it than I used to be. But if it's pouring rain, I would never just get in that car and drive it around, just because there goes. The only way to get it that clean again is you'd have to put it on the rotisserie again, and I don't want to do that. Jesse, he's out. Good stuff, buddy. Thank you so much for stopping in and shooting the shit with us. All right, 5:30. Yeah, 5:30 a.m. I'm assuming. I was, I might still be up. So have a good day, boss. Thank you for stopping in. John says the way you fixed factory mistake on the passenger side fitment is old. We had to make it right. Well, that's very kind. I probably wouldn't have bothered with that, but again, when you do a job like what we're doing with that car, you're really opening yourself up to all the armchair experts by showing how you're going to do something like that, especially when a lot of people have come to the conclusion on their own that you're some kind of dummy. Unfortunately for me, in a case like that, where I'm really just trying to whistle up a daily driver, I've put myself in a situation where the car, at least in terms of fit, has to more or less be beyond criticism, to the point where it has to be better than a lot of the 6-digit restorations that are out there, most of which don't fit worth a shit. And I've seen close-ups in videos that people send me of various cars of that era and type, and they generally don't fit very well. And some little thing like that was a factory mistake and nobody ever noticed it. But if I put that together on this car and painted it, and there's going to be somebody out there who thinks that little bit of a tweak that car needed was somehow makes the car garbage because of the way I built it. So even though that would be, even though I have, that is a total factory mistake and very typical of that era. And we're talking about cars the first year of the unibody car. So a lot of dialing in to do and tolerances that were just not like what they are today. I think there's a big misunderstanding that these cars were somehow beautifully fitted when they were new, but they simply weren't. It was just impossible. I spent 20 hours walking around that car before I put a single tack on it. That's just not happening at the factory. You got 5 seconds, and so the luxury of being able to walk around and tweak out those little fits is an important part of a process like this. And again, I wouldn't, if the car was just a nice original car, I would never dream of drilling out that weld and fixing it, because it's an untouched car. But in a case like this, where it's anything but an untouched car, but you want it to look like an untouched car, in fact, you end up having to make it look like somebody else's idea of what an untouched car would look like. As in, I think, for example, the front doors seem to always stick out on those cars because they very easily, the hinges and or door mounts get very easily bent by forcing the door closed when the little detents are rusty, and it just bends. And so the door still closes, but the front of the door sticks out. And it seems like all the restored ones I see, the front of the door sticks out about 1/8 of an inch. And that shit drives me crazy. And that's not allowed. And it's certainly not allowed to happen on a car that I've put together the way I have, because, the standards suddenly now have to be higher than they ever would have been when the car was new. And that goes for all restorations. All the cars that I've done for customers, these Chevelles and Mustangs and stuff. Those things, they fit like shit. Like those cars are terrible fit and finish. And by the time you get them all fitting, I mean, my buddy's Datsun, we had to unfold the door skins and refold them just so that the gaps were even. Just because as soon as you tell somebody you restored the car, they're not going to stop looking at it until they find something to criticize. And I'm all for criticism when it comes from people who are better than me. And I'm not saying that there aren't, because I'm very happy when my friend Dave stops in, who builds cars for Pebble Beach. And if he's got advice for me, I'm listening, you know, because this guy can build a Ferrari out of a flat piece of aluminum. So that guy I want advice from. That guy I want criticism from. I don't necessarily need criticism from from people who are not so qualified. But I think we also know that anybody can spot bodywork mistakes. Doesn't mean they can do bodywork or they can fix them, but bodywork errors can be seen from space, even small ones. So the standards, I've kind of, if you're going to take on a job like that and you're going to tell people you can do it and you're going to do it, then you have to do it to a standard that is essentially difficult to criticize. And very few things are difficult to criticize. I've noticed, certainly on the internet, behind the shield of anonymity, it's very easy to criticize. So, anyway, yeah. So that. Thank you, John. That was a good question, and I hope that my answer kind of explained some of the reason for some of this stuff. Even doing all that work on the passenger side quarter panel, I mean, a certain amount of it was just so that I don't have to listen to a lot of how somebody's uncle would have done it better, or how this other channel guy does it to say, blah, blah. I just wanted it to be at least to a standard where I could say that, well, okay, I got to put my name on this, and X number of people are going to see it. That means that you should take it. I might take it to a standard that was possibly further than it absolutely needed to go. It would have, I'm very happy with it, but there was probably a couple of hours of fine tuning that I could have happily just, sanded out and painted over. But very happy to at least be going at the car still, and it is really coming along, and it is really going to fit nice. The driver's side fits a lot nicer right out of the box. The passenger side, still some tweaking to do on the door. I think when you see the first video of us picking the car up, or the video with Tom pulling it out, you can see that the passenger side door is sticking out about an inch or an inch and a half away from the A post, because it is so badly damaged that the hinges were all bent, and the door itself is slightly damaged on the internal structure. So that's all got to be addressed. I've been so concerned with the back half of the car that I have done virtually nothing with the front half of it. And sometime the next week or two, we are going to finish that up, and I'm going to pull the car outside, spin it around, and pull it back in and rip the front half of the car off and start fitting that up. And once all four corners of the car are fitted and I'm happy with the gaps and more or less everything clicks closed, then the fun starts. Then it's really just then it's a paint job. Then it's just sand and paint, prep and paint. And I'm only going to paint when I absolutely have to, which is most of the car, unfortunately. I really like to paint as little as possible, but in a car like that, any blue that you see on the outside of the car is not original paint anyway. The car was touched up various times over the years, and collision damage and repairs and various whatever. So there's no original paint to be saved. Therefore, I'm not really doing any harm if I strip the car and paint it back to the original color. The door jams, I'm trying to preserve the original paint there, because that's where I would look if I was trying to see if this was an original car. And I'm not trying to perpetrate any kind of fraud. Obviously, that would be impossible when I showed everybody exactly what I did. But I like the illusion to somebody who's never seen the car or any of the videos. I would like a person who had never seen the car before to think that it is a nice original car. And if that means leaving the door jambs in the original paint wherever possible. That definitely is something I want to do. I love the idea of making that look like an original car when it's really just like the most put together car of all. And kind of a I think a really good goal for a car like that is to make it look like you did nothing. Whereas when people see that car and then they go back and watch the videos, I think that would be some satisfaction for me to see the look on people's faces when they see what that car is actually made out of, which is a whole lot of junk. So I'm very focused and very excited about finishing it. John, Madam Tussauds. Well, that is very kind of you. What important life getting in the way of your ideas? How do you keep focused on making the car the way you see it? I don't have any trouble with that. The only trouble I have is with time. My cars, I have to have an idea of what it's going to be before I even start on it. And once I know exactly what I want, that very rarely changes. I have a very good idea of where I'm going with any car before I even start, and I don't have any trouble bringing it to that. And same with our other cars. I think my brother's Fairlane, that was the goal that we had. That car looks exactly like we said it would the first day we tossed around the idea. I was like, we need to splice it with a 4-door and put it back to the way like it came down the assembly line, and that's exactly what it looks like. White walls and bias plies and factory pinstripes, and it's exactly what we said it would be. And that, I think, is a big thing. Is, I mean, it can't just sort of kind of what you wanted. It has to be exactly what I wanted. And so I'm not worried about anything on the Fury other than, trying to maintain, interest in the project. At a certain point, the project is going to not be interesting for people anymore. I think, in my experience, doing upholstery on my channel is going to, like, that'll be death. I think a lot of that stuff's going to have to just be done on my own time and not get recorded, just because, regardless of the amount of hours and how interesting it is to me, I have to balance keeping the series interesting. And really, after the splice and the big repairs on the quarter panels, from a bodywork point of view, it's essentially anticlimactic from this point until we put paint on it. So the video, like, there's no point in detailing the other repair on the other side of the car on the quarter panel to the extent that I did on the one side, because the repair is not as interesting or as big or as exciting or grandiose or as difficult, frankly, and therefore it can't possibly be as interesting to watch as the bigger repairs and more interesting repairs were. So that said, that's fine with me, because it just means that I can have that done a lot faster without worrying about filming it or editing it, and it won't affect the quality of the finished car or the finished series of videos. I think the idea is, I don't really think I have a ton to prove by documenting every other square inch of the car to the point that I did on that. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. Oh, I better. Yeah, my fault. Sorry, guys. I guess. Oh dear, it is getting later than I thought. I told somebody to phone at 10, and they did, and I had no idea it was actually 10 already. All right. Well, it looks like. Oh, John, what's your tip staying on point with long projects? Well, a few, which is do a little bit. It'll still get done if you do it 20 minutes a day, but it'll never get done if you do it 0. And I do as much as I do all the hard, start with the hardest parts. Don't start with the easy parts, because when you get done the easy little repairs, and then you got to look at the big one. That's why I started with the splice followed by the passenger quarter on the Fury, because everything after that is easy. So yeah, do the hardest, worst parts first. Don't do the engine first. Don't do the money stuff first. Do that last. do the shit work. Do the body first. If you don't have a body, you got no car. And so many guys, they waste so much money on all this other stuff, and then they get to the body and they're either out of money or they're out of patience, and then the whole thing just goes outside in the rain, and it's a huge waste of money and time. If there's no body, there's no car. You can always put a used engine in and drive it for 20 years just fine. But everybody, I don't know, I see it too much. Guys, they first they buy a rusty old car, and the first thing they do is drop 10 grand on machining some high horsepower motor, which then sits on a stand until it seizes because they bought a rusty car. And so if you don't have, buy the best car that you can, start with the best car you can. And again, I'm not saying that I do any of these things. I'm just saying that for people who maybe have less time and resources at their disposal to build utterly garbage cars, like I do it just for the sheer hell of it and just to troll the people who think, that they know more than I do about that stuff. They're going to tell me what I can and can't fix. So that makes me want to just build the worst cars I can just to kind of thumb my nose at them. But it's not a realistic thing in most cases. So a few things like that. Start with the worst of it. Start with the body. If you can't get through the body, you'll never get through the rest of the car, and that's good. That's fine. Better to know that before you drop 10 grand on an engine, which is worth essentially nothing. Like engine machining and stuff, that all that money goes right in the toilet. It does not add to the value of the car. Really, like you can drop 20 grand on an engine, but if that was a way to make money, people would build engines and sell them, and they don't. The only time engines are for sale is when the car project is abandoned and they take a beating on it. So do a little bit at a time, and body. And when you're doing the body, do the hardest parts first. And once it's in paint and rolling and you're happy with it, then maybe engine after that. So I don't know. I think that's the big ones. Body is everything. Of course, easy for a body guy to say that, but how many times do you see guys, they put the whole car together and they do the interior and they do the motor and they do all this stuff, and then they go to get an estimate on the body, and $20,000 of that estimate is taking out all the stuff that they just put in so you can start fixing what it's all bolted to. The body is the car, and everything else just pulls to the body. So that's my advice. If there's no body, there's no car. Dylan, where do you guys come up with the bias plies and vintage rims? Oh, that's fun. The bias plies, there's a tire recycling centers that we raid, kind of nighttime bias ply raids at the tire recycling center. The mags and stuff, here and there, you just hear about them if you see them. A lot of this stuff, after a while, people phone you when they come up with it. I bought a trailer load of old bias plies from a wrecking yard that was shutting the doors, and they had bought a huge pile of tires from a Gulf station. When Gulf left Canada and was replaced with Petro-Canada, the Gulf stations, basically all of their stock became obsolete instantly, and then this wrecking yard had it. So this wrecking yard had all these bias plies for years and nobody was buying them, and so when they went shut the doors, they still had all these brand new tires with stickers on them, and I just bought the whole trailer. So anything you see, like what's on the front of my Fraser, those are actually brand new Gulf tires from an old service station. The large majority of the tires are not roadworthy. All the stuff on the lot, those are just old girls that we get that for one reason or another kind of find their way onto a car. I really think that the tires are so important in keeping the period feel. When I look at a car, if it doesn't have the right tires on it, the illusion is spoiled instantly. Whether the car has got $100,000 restoration on it, if it's got it's got radial tires on it, it's not fooling anybody. It just now I'm not saying they're not better to drive, but I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in, does it feel right? And so for my lot, especially, since the cars don't have to go on the road, they can have any old damn thing on it as long as it's a vintage tire. And the vintage wheels, you know, we find them where we can. I don't have that many, but you know, I buy what I can when I find them. I don't spend a lot of money on any of it. A lot of the tires are freebies. Sometimes we'll get lucky, or somebody will take old bias plies off of a car when they buy an old car and they want to put radials on it or put new tires on it. Somebody will say, "Hey, my buddy will take those," or they'll offer them to me. Do you want these old snow tires for your junkers? And yeah, of course I do. You know, so yeah, it's not too hard to come up with them. It's hard to come up with full matching sets, and it's hard. I'm happy with pairs most of the time. If I've got a pair, that's good enough because you can put snows on the back and something else on the front, and we do a lot of that bullshit just for laughs. And it's where the whole classic tire thing kind of came from. Was just you know, it started with trying to find tires that were suitable to the look I was going for in the car without going the Coker route, because the car was only a $500 car and I wasn't going to put $2,000 worth of tires on it. So that's where the whole classic tire thing came from. And the vintage wheels, a lot of them are, you know, they're too rough to put on a car that you would be restoring, but you know, slightly scabby Craggers or what, that was just like the background noise of the car culture in the 70s and 80s. And so a lot of that stuff just makes me laugh. The mismatched wheels and tires and the one different fender on different color on one side, like that's how I remember cars from when I was a kid. That's what that's what the tough kids drove was, you know, they never had enough money for four wheels. So they'd put big mags on the back and just pry the hubcaps off the front. And that shit always made me laugh. And so now, I mean, some of what we do is an homage to that type of thing. My old Plymouth Fury had a yellow end cap on one corner of the thing, like it was taken off of a taxi. But I mean, I painted it all to look like that. It was, you know, the car was all one color. And I just thought, it doesn't look greasy enough, you know, it didn't make me laugh. So we painted the one end cap like the guy had kind of banged up the car on the weekend and went to the junkyard and put a piece of a taxi cab on it, and was such a grease ball that he couldn't even be bothered to put some primer on the taxi cab parts. So that kind of stuff makes me laugh. And people are always surprised when they see that that's actually just fake, that I painted it to look like that. So anyway. Yeah, so that's where the tire thing comes. There's no magic to it. Just keep an eye open. There's no big bias ply fountain that I know about that nobody else knows. It's just whatever we found. So thank you for all the questions, everybody. I guess we're well past 10 o'clock, and yeah, I would be happy to do some upholstery videos, and maybe they'll go straight to Patreon because the YouTube audience at large, it's not, you know, like I'm not a good enough upholsterer that I want to make that into something where I'd say, hey, this is how you upholster your car. I really never wanted to do any how-to kind of stuff. One of the reasons I never did bodywork on the channel. Because as soon as you say this is how you do something, you're just opening yourself up to somebody to say this, well, that's not how I would do it. And then now what? Now you're just arguing about something that I don't want to argue about. So I was never really trying to do a how-to. Sometimes it ends up a little bit more that way because, you know, that was what the dumb Bondo truck door was about. That's the only time I ever used the word how-to, right? I think. And of course, it was just it was a joke, but anyway. John, thank you very much for your time. And FJ40, that's cool. My friend with the Model A, Paul, we'll be doing an FJ40 for him. I love that stuff. Hey, very good. Tom Marquis. Not related to Dean LTD. yeah, thank you guys all so much. Whoever is left, thank you guys for watching. And if you guys want to, if you guys want, we'll be happy to do this again. It's very easy for me. I'm only just trying to dial in the actual process so that it is essentially repeatable. I still, every time I get it going, I still can't quite remember how I did it. So we'll definitely do it again. And, you guys on the Patreon page, leave a comment if you liked it or if you have any questions that I missed and how often you want to do it, or if if you guys think we should do it once a month or we should do it once a year or never again or whatever. Like, this is all stuff that we're going to do because this is what's keeping the rest of the channel going. And this is why I'm still doing it. So you guys have my ear anytime, and I'm more than happy to carry on doing this kind of thing, and we'll have some laughs. And I'm going to go out and keep welding. So thanks again, and we'll see everybody very soon. And we'll be putting up another video. I hope you guys liked the last one. I had a lot of fun with that, and we'll be putting another one up. Trying to do them Friday night, Saturday morning. The last 4 or 5 have been like actually on time because I recognize now that is something that is if you can't complain that your YouTube channel is not successful if you're not doing something as simple as rule number 1 of YouTube, which is be consistent. So thanks again to the Patreon people. It allows me to say, well, you know what, if you want this to be a success and these people are allowing you to take a day off once a week so that you can make the video, then that's how it's going to get done. And so it is entirely thanks to all the people on Patreon that we're going to carry on doing this, and I'm going to keep trying to make it better, and we're going to build a few cars and have some laughs, and try to keep this to be, the goal, keeping my goal, which was a YouTube channel that I would watch for better or for worse. So thanks again, guys. I'm not really sure how to shut this off, but thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll be back whenever you guys want. You just let me know, and we'll see everybody very soon. Cheers.